All right, Athlete Builder, back at it. We haven't gotten into basketball yet on our podcast, but we're lucky to do that today. Angela Lewis, local to St. Louis area, grew up there, played D1 hoops, then went on to coach, but not before she's played a little bit over in Europe at the pro level. So, pro athlete, D1 athlete, then a coach. Evolved out of there. She was making an impact with athletes on the court, and then felt a different calling, one that helped them on and off the court a lot more. And then she continued to evolve that. Now she works with more and more athletes and also public speakers. And so today, before we even get into any of that, I want to take Angela back. Let's say you're in seventh grade, you're sitting on your bed, and Rodney and Ron show up, two older brothers. I want you to sit there and convince me that you love basketball, Angela. I want you to
I
convince me.
love
I want to hear you say you
uh,
love basketball.
I love basketball. It's my first love and still a big part of my life today. I know exactly where that's from. No,
I'm sure
that's
you do too,
awesome.
because I pulled up Angela's
Yes.
book and cranked through most of it, and I'm reading about. I want to find out about old Rodney and Ron and what happened in seventh grade because, when you and I had talked before the show even started, you're like, "Yeah, I played basketball," and I'm like, "How tall are you, girl?" And she's like 6 feet. I'm like, "Perfect. That's exactly what we want." She goes, "What do you mean?" I tell my boys, pick someone who's tall to date, right? You can't breed height, right, Lucas? Right? I
I,
can't.
I'm I'm 5'7", by the way.
5'7". I can't build height, man, but we can go out and find a good match. And she's like, I was 6 feet tall, and she got 12 shoes. I'm like, oh, outstanding. But if you get into the book and get into a little bit of Angela, it's not always been that fun being that tall as a female. And so just talk about how and why um, your brothers, Rodney and Ron, sat you down on the bed and say, hey, tell me you love basketball. Why did that happen? And what transpired from there?
That happened because I didn't have anyone else to play with. They were my older brothers. And so, as a kid, when you have older siblings, you all have to do you have to do what they do. They kind of force you.
Mm,
And we grew up in St. Louis and we had the house in the neighborhood with a hoop in the backyard. And so we were the house where all the kids came to play. And basketball was the only thing we had to do. This is pre cell phones, pre internet. I'm
yeah.
dating myself a little bit, but basketball was our safe space to play and just be kids. For me as a girl, it was the place where I felt normal. The first team I played on was the first all girls team that I played on. It was a select team. And we can get into that, but I didn't know that it was a select team. And so basketball, from the story about my brothers forcing me to say that I love it, basketball really found me. And I'm so grateful because it literally has opened the world.
I got three questions about that. First, what's the one? I know there's multiple things, but it's one of the top things you love about the game of basketball, the game of basketball itself. What do you love about it?
On top of mind, it gives you an opportunity to meet people from everywhere. Like when you hoop, you're now connected to people who hoop all over the world and you can always engage in conversation. So that's one of the things I love most is the global impact of the sport and how it just brings people together.
Hmm. What's something you don't love so much though? That's number two. Hasn't been asked that question.
All of the fouls that are called, like just stop calling, it's the refs. but
Get
I
out,
mean,
really?
I can't get fined. Yeah. No, I feel like there were some calls that happened back in the day that really weren't fouls for me that if I could take back, we could change a few outcomes of a few games. So
Right?
no, by and large, something that I don't like. I, that's a good one. I'm going to email you later when I come up
Okay.
with it.
And what's one of the things that you miss?
The team, the locker room before the game, the music blasting, being in the huddle, the high fives. Oh, I miss that.
Yeah.
Absolutely miss that.
I was listening to I'm watching basketball my whole life and off and on more or less than others, but I'm listening to this interview. This kid, he's done. It's Boston College, and the season's over. And writing's on the wall. He's really not going to play in the NBA. He can go over Europe maybe and look, go that route. But he's asked, it's the last game ever. What are you gonna miss about the game? And he gets all choked up, this kid, and he's like, the lunches. And I'm like, "Well, what?" He's like, yeah, my boys would go out for lunch and we would be making fun of each other and talking about this or this new game, this new rivalry that's coming up, or I dunked on this kid, or you see that girl looking at me, over there, So it was just the connection with his boys, right? And it's yeah, you'll stay connected somewhat, but it's over, right? You're living it and dying it, right? And you're getting yelled at and you're running suicides and you're getting taped up and there's film, and people are vomiting from running, blah, blah, blah. And you have these big wins and these heartbreaking losses and then that emotional roller coaster and that interwoven fabric with someone else's heart that's with yours. They're like, yeah, he's like the lunches. And he was
Get
broken
it?
when he was um, given that answer. Ah.
Totally
All right.
get it.
So talk a little bit about, growing up. You said, your boys are playing, so there's a safe place, and you're on a select team, but tall for a female, right? 6 feet, that's a little different. So you're gonna have these cross currents growing up that I'm awkward, I'm not awkward, I'm athletic, I'm not athletic, I'm good, I'm not as good as the next, So talk about all those cross currents where some are positive and some are negative, and you're still sticking with it all the way to playing internationally and at the pro level.
What One of the greatest gifts that I got early on, Jim, was that the I was walking out a Blockbuster video. This guy sees me, says, "We need some tall girls on our team." I go to the gym, and these girls are competitive. They were winners already before I got there. So environment matters. So my entry into the sport, although I was new, I was uncoordinated, I was not good. I was tall, but I came into a team of winners. And I had older brothers who pushed me, who were the trainers before we hired trainers, right? That wasn't as much of a thing back then. And so I was able to see what excellence looked like and then be pushed forward. So that was helpful. I think what wasn't as great for me is things like tripping all the time. Like when you're a kid, you're still getting used to your body. I was on the floor a lot. Um, and it was hard, and I definitely wanted to quit sometimes. But what happened that changed everything for me, the summer after my eighth grade year, I'm sorry, the summer after my seventh grade year, going into eighth grade, I got a letter from the University of Memphis. And it was the first college recruiting letter. And I
Dang.
was like, whoa, maybe I could play college ball. And then I turned it up from there and began to take it more seriously and played in high school, had a decent career, scored 1,000 points, over 500 boards, and then played at St. Louis University. But it was that first glimpse of, oh, well, maybe there's something to this that really changed everything and created those opportunities.
And that one thing, it's so hard. Like if a kid comes to play for any coach, and there's going to be some level of doubt, right? Some kids come in, they're
Hmm.
super cocky. It doesn't matter what you say, they're going to say I'm good enough. Some are going to have some confidence. Some are a little wishy-washy. Some want to have some doubt, and some will be like, man, there's no chance. But you have a, a glimmer of hope, not from your brothers who've been beating on you, but this letter comes to you. Someone says, hey, you could be good. You have
Hmm.
potential, and then it can ignite that drive. You're not just motivated, you're driven now, right? David Goggins would say driven. You're driven
Yeah.
now to go out and I'm going to practice these things. I'm going to work on it a little more. Talk about how, whether it's a parent or a coach or an uncle or a neighbor or a letter, right? And says, if you just invest a
Yeah.
little bit in some kids, especially in a kid that has nothing, how that helps that kid take off.
There were probably three big things, Jim. One was women's college basketball was just beginning to ascend. Like Shamiqua Holdsclaw, Tamika Catchings, Samika Randall, like they were shown once every now and then, but we saw them. So that was huge. And at the same time, the WNBA was beginning to form like 96, right? And then the other thing was I actually played against guys all the time. So we would go to the gym And my brothers are identical twins. My brothers who I grew up with, they're identical twins, and they're 6'5". So someone would always pick them. Like they were always good for a team.
Mm.
And they would always convince the guy to pick me up. So I was able to play with this level of safety because my brothers had my back. Like I knew that I could do something because my brothers always had my back. And then the third thing is, as I mentioned, I basketball found me and put me on the select team. So we began to travel. My family went 2 places growing up, Memphis, Tennessee, and Mount Bayou, Mississippi. Literally, we went nowhere else
Dang.
until I started playing basketball. And I will never forget AAU National Championships, 1995, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, walking through the parking lot and seeing all of these license plates from different places. And I was like, oh my God, like basketball can take you anywhere. And there are girls who are like me and taller who are playing and love this game. That right there, those 3 things, the travel with ball, my brothers allowing me to be on their team, and then seeing women play at the next level, that really helped catapult how I saw myself and what I thought was possible for my life.
And there's so much support there. Your family, your parents and brothers. I was an ass to my siblings, honestly, and I've gone back and apologized multiple times, and we're good now. But man, I was not that great. So that's awesome. So if you can find any kind of support group like
Yeah.
that, and then have that little bit of belief, because it didn't sound like you're backing down. And I know things are different because I'm 50 and a number of decades have gone by. People are different, kids are different, society is different. Not every person rises to that challenge. You're on a select team or you're playing
Mhm.
against dudes and you're balling against dudes and they're knocking you down. Like some people are like, hey, that's it, I'm out. See ya. Bounce.
Yeah.
Right? So that's awesome that they're picking you and you're helping you. And they keep pushing you. You keep evolving. Dang.
Constantly pushed.
Const-
Constantly. I was constantly pushed to be better, which was not fun at the time at all.
I had a note about high school rivalry warm-ups. What's up there?
I went to Lafayette High School, Lafayette Lancers, class of 2000, representing.
Let's
Oh
go.
God, that was 25 years ago. I can't believe I just said that out loud. Oh my God. So our rivalries was Marquette University, Marquette High School. And it was senior year warm-ups. And this is back in the day when we had those rip-off pants. Like
Mm-hmm.
those, they're going to make a comeback eventually. And they're the ones that button up on the side. And
Oh
so
yeah.
I unbuttoned the bottom snaps of those warm-up pants. And we were doing this 4-corner pass drill. And as soon as I unbuttoned the snaps on the bottom, I tripped and slipped on the bottom of the warm-ups and fell flat on my face.
Mm,
And I could just hear my teammates, in addition to everyone in the crowd, just laughing at me. So
dang.
thanks. Yeah, that wasn't fun at all. So and at that point, I'd already signed a scholarship. Like I was already, set for the next level, but you can't control everything and embarrassment still happens.
That's true. That's true. And to be able to just laugh at that, but you're still in that place where your teammates laughing at you, but it's they still got you. It's like
Yes.
yeah, it's like I can pick on my brother, but no one else can. So your teammates are laughing, but it's still cool that way. Oh man. Now AAU, Lucas has a lot of kids that play AAU.
Got a lot.
Oh, really?
Lucas,
Tons and
let
tons
me
of
ask you,
kids.
Lucas, how much do you love AAU right now?
I don't. At all.
Oh,
Sorry.
It's
oh.
different.
Coming from a performance standpoint, a strength conditioning standpoint, um, especially at the school and environment I'm at with kids that are still developing and still um, developing strength and coordination and all these developmental things. It it's hard to train them in a way that one they're always tired and fatigued and beat up, and we spend
Mhm.
more time. I spend more time rehabbing and well, let's fix this. Let's work on this. Let's not do this. It's I spend a lot of time doing that instead of trying to to actually develop good qualities and good movements and good and develop good strength in these kids because they're always playing AAU, and it's not. And I don't know if AAU is different now than it was a few years ago, but it's year round
I
these
appreciate
days.
that.
It's it's year round. It's we got summer league, then you got fall league, and then it turns into basketball season, and then another AAU tournament league happens right after basketball season. So it's year round. So it's um, I just see a lot of things that are kids don't get time off. They kids don't have an off season.
Hmm.
They don't get time to develop. So it's as a strength coach, as a performance coach, it's AAU for. Then it's not just basketball. It's every sport.
Yeah.
It's tough to work around, and it's always it's a year round thing that's never going away. So um,
So,
Yeah.
Angela, let me ask you, how have you seen it
So,
evolve in the last 25 years with the sport itself, leagues, and AAU itself, and how kids and families have adapted?
well, Lucas hit it right on the head. There's no rest. There's
Mhm.
no time to rest. I remember when I coached at Southeast Missouri State and when I was director of ops at Marquette, we would put the schedule together when we would go recruiting to see what players, and there was just so many tournaments all the time. The
Hmm.
NCAA, of course, mandates when you can go and can't go, but there are so many tournaments that kids really don't get the type of breaks that we had to give your body time to recover. And I think there's a lot of pressure, especially now with NIL and brand deals. Kids and parents feel like if you're not being seen, whether it's training, if you're not visible, then you're gonna miss opportunities. And the truth is, as a coach, if you're good, I'm gonna find you. Like we'll find you. It doesn't matter where you are. Someone's gonna let us know about you. Um, I just went to coach mode. I don't coach college basketball right now, but coaches will find you if you're good enough, without question. So rest is important and recovery is important, and that needs to be talked about more often.
For sure.
well, it's these tournaments. It's because I see it a lot. I see a lot of these tournaments because of the facilities I work at and where I have to be at. Sometimes I see a lot of it going on, and I hear about it, and sometimes I wonder if there's actual basketball being taught as opposed to getting a team together, running, gunning down the court. So I don't. It's tough telling. And I sometimes I don't know if it's actually because it used to be if you were on an AAU team, you were kind of
Yeah,
you were the stud. You were that you
true.
got on that team because you were good and that helped you get exposed. I think it's more about getting people in the door and playing as many tournaments and getting as many people on a team anymore. I'm not. I could be wrong, but it's kind of how I feel. And
Well,
I know
and
we don't like
and
how we
no.
feeling, but
Well, Lucas, what you're alluding to is that there's AU, which is what we did, and now there's the Nike has its own league, Adidas has its own league, and AAU still exists. And so we talk about AAU as kind of a catch-all for
yeah,
all of the select basketball that happens, but it's really a lot of different leagues by different organizations, and kids are playing across leagues, and that doesn't even include what's happening at the local level in terms of summer leagues, fall leagues.
oh yeah.
And some of it is to your point, like people just getting together, practice once a week, and then you play in tournaments. So
And
it
one of the things you pointed out, though, you still love basketball even though you have a different line of work. When you get together with your families, you guys still bring that ball out, play a little horse, play a little pick, play a little one-on-one. You still
one of
ball the
my
fan.
my niece one of my nieces plays basketball, and she was in the driveway this weekend shooting. So we bring it out. We don't play one on one as much because we're all over 40, and none of us can risk injury. But we'll play horse, but we won't compete. But we'll definitely watch it. I mean, this weekend we were watching LA, um, LA play. Yeah,
Gotcha.
they play the Timberwolves. So we're definitely always watching it. It's always topic.
Awesome.
And, I played a little bit of basketball back in high school. Pretty bad, really. Not very good. I was very defensive specialist for sure. I was the we need we need 5 fouls really fast, and that was me. I liked it. It was cool. Um,
Yeah.
I enjoy basketball a lot more now. Now that I don't have to play high school or I'm not playing, but I do look forward to the student staff basketball game every year, and that's always a good time. I scored 4 points in the last one 3 weeks ago. Very out of
Nice.
shape. Found out 30 seconds in just how out of shape I actually am. So the whole injury, worrying about injury, 100% was on the back of my mind as I'm sprinting down the court trying to slow down. So I understand.
That
Yeah,
ACL,
it's nice.
ACL, and that Achilles gets get a little nervous there, don't you?
Oh yeah, I was at one point I remember running and breaking, trying to break down and play defense, and I was like, oh, I gotta cool down because as soon as I get out there, I'm full going. This is the state championship game,
Hmm.
so I had to
Because
pump the
that
brakes a little
competitive
bit.
spirit, Lucas, that competitive spirit doesn't leave. And so in your mind, you're like, oh, I'm about to win.
Yeah.
Absolutely about to win.
And
Yeah. No, I get that.
I cannot ever get horsed by any of these kids out there. It cannot happen.
No,
100%.
you you won't hear the end of it.
No.
I'm looking through because for those that don't know, we do this a little bit of research, and Angela gave us plenty of information about it. It was awesome. And I asked her about her short-term plans, blah blah blah. She gave me 15 things. People usually give me one. Give me 15, and half half were about learning. I want to learn this, golf, tennis, whatever. Better at dancing, sweet. Speak this, Spanish, French. I combined that data with the fact that she's playing in Germany. She's running a basketball camp later in life in Colombia. All different countries, different languages. I want to learn all these things. Talk about how learning has been like a cornerstone here for all these years, whether it's learning how to dribble with your left hand or learning different languages or even these different instruments. Like, what's going on? You just can't fill that brain enough, or you want to just learn everything? Get in the matrix. What's going on?
There's just so much that we can do, and life is just beautiful. Like there's a lot to learn, especially now, like with the internet and with I just am grateful to have had so many different experiences that have really opened up my curiosity. And I think when you on the language part and culture, when you are immersed in another culture, learning is critical for survival. So you don't have a choice but to figure out how to speak a language, to figure out what the food is and how to get to where you need to be, or else you just might not
Mm.
make it back. So part of it is survival. Um, but the other part of it is, I think as a leader, like if we shift into what you learn from sport, is you're always learning and you're always looking to get better. And that's one of the beautiful things that you learn from playing sport, regardless of the sport. But that stays with you.
That's true. And I was going through your book. You have a few books, but the one, the Game Changing Assist, 6 simple ways to choose success. So it's succinct. There's 6 ways you're choosing. Success isn't just happening to you. You're not just born that way. And then you just lay it all out there about your voice, your vision, value, being in the valley, victory, and then volunteering. How did all that come together? How that philosophy, how that plan, that roadmap all come together for you, and how did you decide to put that down in a book and make an impact that way?
Thank you so much. This book, like anytime you write or create something, it is the most vulnerable thing you can do because it's like your heart on paper or and it's your thoughts and ideas that you put out in the world. And so this book came about. I was asked to speak to a group of students when I was an assistant coach at Southeast Missouri State University. The students were on campus for a campus visit. And the night before, I was just thinking and praying, like, what am I going to talk to these students about? And that was placed on my heart, like that roadmap: voice, vision, values, valley, victory, and volunteering. And then I talked about how they could apply each of those to their lives. And then I kept giving the same speech over and over again. And it resonated with the people I spoke with. And so I decided to put it in a book.
Mm. Uh, I- I'm sure you talk to young little kids, junior high, not so fun kids, right? Some of the high school kids, and you got kids that come up to you afterwards. Talk about how the feedback and the impact that you've experienced from working with youth about using sports as an analogy for their life and things like that.
For the athletes, it's really obvious. Like they always seem to get it because you have to be willing to work. And they all, like you, Lucas, we talked about before, the valley, like you, valleys come all the time. It's the other young people who apply it to their schoolwork, or they're like, oh, okay, maybe my friend group, these voices that I'm listening to are actually really destructive. And I need to change who and what I'm exposing myself to. One of the pieces that often I think gets overlooked is the point of victory. And victory really isn't for ourselves. So this is, if there's anything that I hope they get from it, that I hope like really lands, is that whatever we've accomplished is intended for us to then give it to someone else and to share it. So in that chapter on victory, like I talk about my parents and my dad being a baker, staying up all night reading recipes, and how my mom grew up in Mississippi and literally picked cotton. And like, so everything they went through so that we could have these opportunities is for us to then give that back to others. And so it lands because whether it's, regardless of which concept, you can connect and relate it to your life, kids and adults.
For sure, for sure. As you've been doing this for a while now, has the reception been different from kids from say 10 years ago to now? Or is it still been
The
the same?
the examples have to change a bit because Instagram didn't exist, back then.
Right?
AI didn't exist back then. So YouTube isn't what it is now, isn't what it was. No, it's different than it was. So in terms of the amount of information and exposure. So in terms of reception, I think I still feel like I'm relatable. I still feel like I'm cool despite the grays. Um, and so I think I still am able to connect and are able to get it.
I find that when I'm talking to people, if they're used to talking to their phone and not looking me in the eye, that's a different skill. They haven't had enough reps with it where they're comfortable looking people in the face. And
Hmm.
when I talk to my own kids, hey, did you ask that girl out? And they said, yeah, I sent her a text, see if she wanted to go out. I said, that's how you asked her out? Or that's how he asked you out? And they're like, yeah, that's how we do it. I'm like, and then they'll say something like, well, I text I'm going to be there, but I don't feel like going, so I'm just not going to go. I said, well, you said you're going to be there. So for me, if I said I was going to this party, or if I'm going to this event, I'm going to the library, I'm going to study, whatever, if I'm going to do something, I
Yeah.
would do that. And then they get ghosted and it doesn't happen. So the communication I find is a bit challenging, right? And it's just a new wrinkle,
Yes.
a new issue that we don't deal with. So that and their soft skills, from what I'm noticing, is taking a hit. And in anything, whether it's sport or not, how you get along with your teammates and or your coaches and your support team, that your family and friends are helping you, that makes a difference whether you win or lose, whether you compete or not, whether you stay in the team or not. So the soft skill approach, the communication approach, our teamwork component, that's got to be a piece that you focus on quite a bit. Talk to us about that a little bit.
Soft skills are critical. And I'm glad you brought up like what happens when the phone is in our face and the phone is not in our face. If we think about soft skills and being on the court with people, you don't have phones. It's
Hmm.
like you can't have a phone on the court. And so what I want athletes to know is that there are certain times when you're literally on the court. So when you're talking to your coach, you're on the court, like, let's have a face to face conversation. Let's talk about what the game plan is. And those soft skills is what will prepare you and create opportunities for you in life. Everybody's going to need someone to give them a reference. Everyone is going to need someone to be able to speak on their behalf. And so being able to introduce yourself, say thank you, say please, be willing to engage and be curious about other people and it's not all about you, will create opportunities.
I'm a coach, you're a kid on the team, and I come at you with, hey, you should be seen and not heard. You shut the hell up. I'll let you know when you can talk. We'll talk later. And then that later never happens. How do you coach a kid on how to handle someone like that? 'Cause that can be very intimidating. The coach is a lot
Hmm.
usually older, bigger, especially with the younger kids, right? And it's a breakdown in communication and therefore a breakdown on the team's ability to win. How do
Yeah.
you coach someone in that? Because that's very, very hard, whether it's a kid or an adult.
So you're the coach who is saying, don't talk, just work.
Yeah. I'll let you know when we can talk. You talk later, right? I don't want to hear from you right now.
So then I would ask for to set up a time to talk with a coach and to see like if there are three most teams have maybe one or more captains. So I would maybe bring in a teammate to say, hey, can we have this conversation? Bring someone else into the conversation as well. I think as often as kids can try to have those conversations with coaches or others themselves and not bring adults in, it changes the
Hmm.
relationship and the
Yeah.
connection and the ability, and you're going to have those conversations and learn how to have them. So I would say decide what you want to say and then try to set up another time in a place, whether it's on the court or somewhere where you can have that conversation with your coach.
Nice. Now I'm a coach and I want you to give input, but you're a kid who's shy or been taught, hey,
Hmm.
you're a yes man, right? You just whatever you say, coach.
Everything.
You don't voice your own thoughts, and there's value because you're going to see things on the court. You're going to have some value because you're a human being. And I'm trying to get the kid to open up. And
Yeah.
how do you coach that kid to say, hey man, the coach wants you to advocate for yourself. You're not doing that. You could get left behind. You need to go do this, kid. How do you coach a kid in that scenario then?
My initial thoughts are you give options. So, do you like this play? Do you think it could be better? Like, are we running? You give them examples of things that could be different to help them choose. So you give options because I was that kid, like, I wouldn't just say, here's what it is.
Mhm.
Like, I needed to know what the possibilities were to begin to form thoughts and ideas that were more critical in nature. So you give options as well. And then if there's always someone on the team who is willing to share their opinion. So then you have an example. Oh, remember when April said, maybe we can make the outlet pass faster. That's an example of things that we need from this team. So you encourage it and then celebrate it once it happens, especially from those kids who don't do it often.
Nice, nice.
Do you think kids right now, do you think they have a more difficult time understanding how to critically think and problem solve?
100%. Yeah, I
Because
think, yeah, because I was talking to my nieces and nephew this weekend, and they have Snapchat, and then the AI is embedded into Snapchat. And you just ask it questions, and it gives you answers. And so, although there's benefit to it because you can learn from it, but you also want to be able to think critically. And I think modeling is huge. Coaches have such an profound influence on the lives of young people. And so, where there are deficits as adults, we can then begin to model what it could look like for them if they don't know.
I believe for me personally, in my what I do is, I put them in a position to overcome adversity or a hard challenge, say a heavy back squat or working on power clean technique, stuff like that. But I also feel, especially right now in today's modern age, I feel like I have to do as much as putting emphasis on you guys need to figure out how to solve this problem and kind
Hmm.
of guiding them, but not giving them the answers to things. But I feel like that has to be more of that has to be addressed specifically more often than not anymore. Um,
Yeah.
when I talk to
Well,
guys or athletes about, hey, what did you do wrong there? We've talked about, certain cues, and you've heard me say this before on, this is where the bar needs to be on your back, or this is where your feet need to be. where talk me through it. I put our kids in
Mm-hmm.
positions to,
I
you
love that.
tell me what you need to do or what you think you need to do, and then we'll talk about it, you know?
Yeah, I love that. So you're giving them the opportunity to
Yeah.
put it out there and figure it out.
Because
It's
they don't
huge.
think about
Makes
this stuff. I don't think like
yeah.
what I'm observing is the kids don't think about the task that they're doing. They're just a lot of times just trying to get it done. And you see
Yeah.
that in practices where you're telling an athlete, hey, we're at track practice and we need to be hitting these times at this portion of the track, or you know this certain technique and these certain amount of steps over the hurdles. I don't know if they're always thinking about these little details and problem solving and getting better at their craft this way. So I feel like you have to put it in their hands and say, hey, figure this out, and this is how you need to do it.
Hmm. And I think what you're speaking to is the level of distraction that exists in today's society with we're always thinking like, oh, did this person DM me back? Did I get this message? And so to actually be fully present requires a lot more energy and effort than it ever did for us. We didn't have a choice. Like that, we weren't worried about a message that was sent or a post that was made and if anyone liked it or shared it or who's on TikTok today. That wasn't a thing. We could be fully present without distraction. And so some of what I hear you saying that coaches are doing more is helping kids just slow down, like to slow down mentally, to slow down physically, and to process what they're doing in that moment. And that will help them become better athletes. Because if you're not mentally there, especially in your case, you could get hurt like big time with in terms of lifting. If you're not, your mind and body and spirit aren't in that moment, it's high risk.
I remember even in college sports, high school sports, college sports, it was whenever I was at practice, that's all I wanted to think about because that was
Yeah.
my time to think about that stuff. And it was fun not to worry about homework or, Instagram was just becoming a thing when I was in high school. So you know, I didn't think about that stuff and it was a time to not think about it. And now I feel like you have to pull them off that a
Mhm.
little bit more and try to get them to focus on one thing at a time is very challenging right now in sports for these kids.
Yes.
Um,
Focus is a great separator. And for those kids who are going to be great and going to excel, you see, and it's with anything, right? Whether it's business, like the people who focus will win in the long term because focus is not common.
Mm, mm. For me, when I'm coaching these kids, I give them the whys behind it over and over again, several times, 4, 5, 8, 10 times. And a lot of times, in most youth and most people, they'll be a lot stronger on their front side. Say their quads are a lot stronger, their hamstrings and glutes are a lot weaker.
Hmm.
And I say the reason we're doing this all the time is we're trying to prepare you against or prep you so you don't get injured. And they look at me like a lot of ACL tears come from imbalances, strong quads, weak hamstrings and butts. So ACL tears, ACL tears, ACL tears equal a year for you. You're already way behind. So the next week, hey, we're doing this again. We're doing this over and over again because we don't want ACL tears. I keep telling them 4 or 5 times, right? Then the next week I say, why are we doing this? Because a lot of times they'll just be looking at me and I'm giving them information. They're just, if they don't need to regurgitate it, then they don't care as much because someone will know it for them, that being me. Why are we doing this? They kind of look around and somebody goes, ACL tears. And I was like, that's it, dude. That's all you got to know. We don't want ACL tears. So if I give them the whys over and over again, on something completely unrelated, I deal with these kids on Wednesdays. I give them a lot of homework. And I say, why are we tracking our protein? And they're like, I don't know. They don't know why at first. I says, well, you want to play at this level, right? And I looked
Hmm.
up at people at your level. What does that look like physically? And you're a good 50 pounds off or 30% off. We're tracking your protein so we can track your calories and then move your weight up so you're in the game so you can get stronger, make more impact. So the next week, hey, we're tracking our protein again. And he's like, why are we doing that? I don't know, so we can bigger. Yeah, but you said you wanted to play here and you're here. And those that play here look like this. And they say, oh, so the next week again, why we tracking protein? And they say, because we want to be here. I said, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So if I tell them enough times and then I ask them, someone. So they can just sit there and listen and be lectured to. If they know they can get called on randomly, then when I'm lecturing again, they kind of listen a little bit better, a little bit, not always.
You
Um,
attach it to the goal. There's a
yes,
goal that they have that they've said that they want, and you're
yes,
able to use that against them, or use that for them, not
right,
against them.
for sure. If that's a tie to their identity, and I can that's where the motivation comes in. That you can fabricate motivation if you can tie it back to their why.
Um, Kind of on the flip side of things, with talking about social media is a wild tool in recruiting and getting exposure and putting a name for yourself out there and basically putting your resume on your social media page. We talked about soft skills. What soft skills do you know? Is having a good resume on your social media page, or this is me on my social media page for athletes. Hey, this is my bio and this is what I'm doing. Would that be considered a soft skill?
I would say how you communicate who you are on any platform can show your soft skills. For example, if there's a sense of gratitude, right? You can pretty tell when it you can tell pretty good when a kid shows that they're actually, it's not all about them. Like they're grateful for their teammates, for their parents, for their coaches. That does something for people our age. You're like, oh, they actually care about someone other than themselves. And so for those kids who are showcasing who they are, it's helpful to not only show everything that's great about them, but when coaches recruit, they're recruiting the whole person. So they want to know that you're going to go to class, that you're going to show up when you say you're going to show up, and that you have the ability or show the ability to put the team before yourself. And the team is just as important. And so those are things that I think can also be expressed on any platform in addition to their stats and highlights and all. They want to see you high fiving your teammate. I slip back into being a coach again. Sorry, let me come back out of that. Coaches want to see you pick your teammate up when they fall. How do you respond? Here's some body language is huge in terms of soft skills. This is your nonverbals. So when you miss a shot, does your head hang or do you run back on defense? All those little things make a difference.
The hard, when you're
Great question.
taking a kid to play a sport in high school or college, they have their normal course load of work, which is
Mm-hmm.
challenging, right? And then you're giving them a sport, especially in college. You have essentially two course loads now. You have your 50-hour a week athletic job and your 50-hour a week student job. That requires a higher level of maturity and professionalism than the average kid that doesn't have that, right? So you're looking for someone that's already has a little bit of that already, so you don't have to teach and coach that as much. Hey, this person already has their act together. If I go on their X page or their Twitter page, it's not big hoop dog. It's Jim Beebe.
Mm-hmm.
Here's my height. Here's my weight. Here's my GPA. Here's my phone number. Here's how you contact me, right? So those kids already have that higher level of sophistication or professionalism right there on a social media platform indicates that maybe they're a little bit more mature, which will make my job, coach, a bit easier because we're asking them to do hard things, be professional and a student. They're just not out. Like I can tell you when I was doing in college, I was drinking a bunch on the weekends, right? And
Mm-hmm.
you guys travel on the weekends. You guys play in weekends, right? So there's none of that. So you're looking for someone different, higher caliber person, and everything you wear, see, or say or do is your brand and who you are, so that you're always being assessed to see if you're a good fit for this group. Don't you think?
Always being assessed. I know there's some parents who run pages too. So
Oh,
coaches will have to vet. I know a number of parents who
oh yeah.
are their kids' social media managers, which is
Mm.
okay as well. So coaches will, have to have those conversations. But it does make a difference. I know the kid informs some of what's there as well, even if they're not the one posting and replying to
Mm.
everything.
One of the simplest and most common things I tell our guys about having soft skills and stuff like that is just tell them to be a nice guy, be a nice person. Just be, just be nice and kind and just be genuine. And literally what I tell them is if you're just a nice person, that's going to carry you farther than really, I think anything anything that you can do. Because nobody, first of all, if you're not nice, then if you're getting looked at by a coach, you're not nice. You have no shot.
Yeah.
Just be a
It'll be
nice
tough.
person.
Yeah, be a good person. 100%. We say all the time that people do business with people they know, like, and trust.
That's it.
And so the great thing about athletes, the knowing you part, you got that part down already. So many people already know you. Is, do they like you? Do they trust you? And for those athletes, regardless of how long it's been, there are some people who still remember when you played. It could be the referees, it can be the coaches and ADs at the school. You still have this brand that exists even before we called it a brand. Like your what's the word? It's
Image.
not personality,
Persona, image, I like that.
image.
Yeah.
Yeah, that exists and it's real. So whether they think it is or not, people are still perceiving you in a certain way because you play a sport. And usually it's favorable because you play a sport. So you can use that to your advantage and do those things, those soft skills. Communicate and be a good person. It makes a difference.
That's who you are. I know a lot of people like to be like, well, I don't care what this person thinks about me, or I don't care what they think. Well, you should
Hmm.
care. You should care enough for them to like you. Because
Yeah.
if you don't care and they got this image about you and it's not favorable, then that is who you are in their eyes. And
And you can miss out on opportunities.
yeah,
It's a two-edged sword there. You want to make sure you're living yourself the right way, and it identifies with your moral code. And if someone doesn't like that, then you have to be able to say, "Hey, I don't care," right? But if you're just walking around being a jerk, saying that, that tells the world that you don't care about anyone else. So it's kind of hard for anyone to like you so much. On prior episodes, we had Shani Lipscomb. She played out in New Mexico volleyball, and then went to play for Peru nationally. And then we had
Hmm.
Carly Wopat. She played for Stanford in volleyball, and then she played for Team USA nationally, and then on the Olympic team she was an alternate. And both of them said something interesting in that to advance through school ball and travel ball, like your AAU, that sometimes for them to advance, all they had to do was outlast the other girls. That there was a lot of, sometimes they're your best friends on the team. Sometimes they will
Hmm.
turn on you quickly and they hate you, and it'll be the deal with the cattiness. And so a lot of times it's just outlasting others. And then if something happens, you're playing ahead of them, and that person just quits. They just give up. And sometimes if you just keep hanging on a bit longer, you keep advancing. How similar is that in basketball? Because I wouldn't know.
It's 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 very similar. It's really interesting that they said that, and I think on the women's side, especially, most the Women's Sports Foundation put out so many reports about girls' participation in sports, and at 14, most girls drop out. So most of them are done by 14 playing competitively. And then even at the high school levels in the St. Louis area, there are just less girls playing basketball now. Tons of girls playing volleyball, but less playing certain sports. And so I think you can definitely win by just continuing to go. I'll give you an example. I got a DM from a woman who's a coach at a local community college. They don't have a team. There's no one left on their team. They had some coaching transition. So if you're someone who just wants to play and get a scholarship, contact me. I'll tell you who this coach is and the school. If you're in the Midwest, I know y'all are in Indiana, I'm from St. Louis. If you are in the Midwest and you are listening and you need a scholarship, they need players who want to play, who are good kids, who are looking to get an education and play ball. To your point, Jim, yeah, I think they're that's pretty accurate.
Hmm.
Coaches are looking for players.
You said 14 is a big transition age for them leaving sports. And I've been to women's games. I've been to women's pro games, and I only played freshman year in high school, and I played the five, like you played the post. And so these are women that are, I'm 6'3". These people are taller than me, and they're banging down low, right? They're not, there's hips, they're knocking people around. You're going up strong. They got strong shoulders. So then you're gonna have this dichotomy intellectually, or some people are going to feel like, hey, I need to be this physical specimen to handle my sport because you do, or you're going to get your ass beat, right? You're going to get hurt, or you're just not going to play. And then the other side, well, I'm bulking up a little bit here. I'm not looking how I want to look, feminine wise, whatever. So there's what my sport and my life demand, and then there's what I want to put out there physically. How do you handle that component? Because I got four daughters in my family, and plenty of nieces, and um,
Hmm.
so how do you handle that challenge with females?
This is a great question. And I get asked this all the time. Okay. So, first of all, our bodies aren't going to look like men's bodies. It's just not possible. And depending on your genetic makeup, you may or may not bulk. I had a teammate in college who was ripped. I could lift my entire life. I would never have her body. Genetically, she could drop step and grab the rim. It was unbelievable. And had a six pack and ate Snickers every day. Like, genetically, she won.
Mm-hmm.
She absolutely won. So, part of it is take a look at the people in your family to get an indication of your genetic makeup, and then push yourself to see how far your body can go. And then the last part is you're not going to be doing that forever. So you can say, oh, I don't want my body to be muscular or whatever, but you're not going to, if you want to compete and win, your body has to change. Um, and the last thing, Jim, I think we are at a different place on the basketball side, but women athletes are like wearing makeup now, and they have their hair done and nails done in games and lipstick. We didn't see that coming up. So I think there's definitely a place now where you can be competitive as well as exude femininity, however you define it. And beauty brands are finding that out as well.
Gotcha. That's excellent. Excellent answer. Very helpful. What I'm looking at this other note here, and you're playing Cincinnati. Offensive rebound miss, no putback, you lose, right? You're upset. And so it's easier to get over it if there's still 5 minutes to play in the game and you still got to run up and down the court and then make more plays because you're already thinking about that's something new. But if the game ends, you're kind of stuck in that thought, right? So in the moment and then later that night, how do you coach an athlete to handle that in the moment? Like this didn't go well. And then later, because some people that'll weigh on them. And then now it affects the
Mhm.
next day. Now it affects a week or a season. And now the kid comes up to play baseball, and every time it's time for him to hit, he's great in practice, but when it comes time to play, he's terrified and he can't get past it, right? So how do you get these? How do you coach a kid to get past that in the moment and then later?
Coach your kids to get past that. One, by acknowledging that it happened. Okay. And how you feel bad. Great. But you have another game. So there are other times in the past when things didn't go well and you have to move on. So it's another opportunity. So if you can frame it as another opportunity to display what you've been working on and how you've been practicing, that's helpful. The second part is helping the player reflect on things that actually went well in the game. Rarely, like that shot did make or break the game. There were other shots missed, other free throws missed. So you put it in perspective and
Hmm.
give them context to it and let them know that you still believe in them. If I'm a coach, I'm affirming that I still believe in them. I'm giving them examples of times that went right and helping them know how they can improve for the next game. That's
Yep.
what my coach did for me. And I was able to bounce back from that. But it's a good thing, I think it's a good thing that the kid would be upset because it means you actually care
Yeah.
about what happened in the game. I'd rather
Yeah.
have them care than not.
Sure. They're dialed in. Their focus is a bit higher. That's nice. Sometimes when I point out to kids in the weight room and something might go well or something not go well, and they'll know that for me, I'm looking for trends. I'm looking for trends. So,
Yeah.
hey, man, we had 6 straight months where we squatted well on Mondays. All right. Today's an off day. This is not a trend. This is an anomaly. This is not usual. This is
Hmm.
atypical. So I'm going to make my decisions or get deeper in the investigation if a trend starts or is going in a different direction. So if the kid's always missing free throws, he goes from an
Hmm.
85% free throw shooter to a 55%, and now it stays there. All right, hey, that's not just missing a free throw during one game. That's missing them, right? So I think when you point out to
Hmm.
the kids, hey, this isn't a trend, this is a one time. Once this is a bigger and bigger trend, then we'll address it if we have to. But this is what your history has shown us. So I'm confident that we're
Yeah,
still going to be there, right? Kind of gives them a little more context, like you said.
definitely. I think
Go
there's
ahead.
an inverse of that you just made me think of, Jim. It's the kid that comes to practice and has a great practice, like one great practice, and then
Mm,
expects to play and start the next game. It's like, hold on, but your trend isn't that you're consistent and
yeah,
that you work hard and that you're disciplined. You had one disciplined day or one great practice. You don't get applause for that. As coaches, you're looking for, like you said, the trends to determine what happens next. It's not that one time deal.
we were coaching this one lady and is on nutrition, and we had just started, and she had texted me like on Wednesday, and we talked on Monday, and she said, "Hey, I had a salad for lunch, and I got on the scale, and I'm not any lighter." I go, "I know," but
No, it's not how it works, honey.
but she was just being funny, you know.
Oh man,
Um,
Yeah.
that reminds me of I got an athlete that's when he came in, this is his freshman year. He's a football player. He came in, and I think he was like 115 pounds, 120, and but he's totally bought into the weight room and training and eating, and he's been bringing his meals and getting his protein, and so he's like 145, 147 now, but he's glued to the weight scale, and I'm like.
Yeah.
So I was like, Coach Lucas, my weight is down 3 pounds. I'm like, okay, you're okay.
Okay.
He's always and
Yeah.
he'll text me, Coach Lucas, my weight, I can't get it back up. I'm down 2 or 3 pounds. I'm down 5 pounds. I'm like, well, just be glad you're not 115 pounds like you were 8 months ago. So I always got to remind him,
Exactly.
hey, look where you're at. The whole process of gaining a little bit of weight's going to you got 4 years, going on 3 years now, you'll be all right. So,
Yeah. I agree. Giving that perspective makes a difference.
talk about you said soft skills communicating, international growing pains. That's different, right? When I think Germany, I'm
It
thinking
is.
Oktoberfest, right?
That occurred.
Right?
Yep. Oktoberfest. Yep. That's the thing. Germany was amazing because I grew up, in the inner city of St. Louis. So I never heard German, like I've never heard the language spoken in my day, not even in school. I mean, I went to school in the suburbs and I never heard German. So going to another country and having to like try to figure out what people were saying. I remember I lost my bags. And when I first arrived, right, this was a beautiful entry into my German experience. The bags never showed up. I go over to the counter and I'm asking the lady, attempting to ask, what do I do about this situation? And so I thought if I spoke louder in English, she would understand English, which doesn't work, by the way, if you're traveling. That doesn't work. So there was a really kind man that came and translated for us and was able to get my bags a few weeks later. But
Dang.
there's language, there's food. For players who play internationally, it is a beautiful experience, but you have to be adaptable because it is not always like home, depending on what country that you go to. And you learn so much about other people and places when you're just curious and kind.
I'm gonna be looking, making sure I know where the bathroom is. I'm gonna get nervous getting off the plane. Like, hey man, what happens if I'm in trouble here, right?
Yeah.
Dang.
I got on the wrong train. I mean, so many mishaps.
But you find
So
there's a
many.
commonality with sports, right? People, the rebound's still a rebound, points are still points, and then the competitiveness and camaraderie. There's still that commonality in sports across cultures. Talk about that.
Sports is one of the few places where you can ask the questions that you normally want to ask in day-to-day life with teammates. So even here, I had a teammate. I was one of the only black girls on my team growing up, and I wear braids all the time. Well, you take the braids out. Like, this is not my hair. But my teammates hadn't seen that. So one time I was taking out my braids and I put it in one of my teammates' hair. we had this awesome conversation. Jim was like, "What the hell?" We had this really cool conversation around hair and culture. One of my teammates is Jewish, and so I went to her brother's bar mitzvah. I did this camp in Manizales, Colombia. And after the camp, we salsa danced center court. They turned on music and we were dancing salsa in the middle of the court. And so basketball sport just gives you a chance to get to know people deeper because you're on the same team without feeling like you need to be politically correct in business settings or in kind of our day-to-day life.
Yeah, yeah. Now, I know I'm a bit older than everybody here, but like any sport or culture or company or family, they evolve. And James Naismith back in the day with the baskets and the ladders is different than it is today with their dunking. Just 25 years ago, you said when you were playing, right? So talk about how, because one of the things we talk about here with the athlete and one of our main shtick with this platform is that we're building all components of the athlete. There's their mindset, there's knowledge of playing basketball, but how they work with people. Now nutrition is more of a thing and recovery along with
Mm-hmm.
their physical training where people weren't squatting back in the day, right? They weren't doing plyometrics and jumps. They would just go play basketball. They weren't
Yeah.
tracking their protein. They weren't taking creatine and supplements. As you've seen, these athletes are now better, but it takes more for them to optimize themselves and reach their fullest potential. So talk about how the athlete has to do a lot more things outside of the things just on the court for them to not only be competitive, but then also win.
There are two athletes, Jim. Here's what comes to mind first. It's those who want it and those who don't. And
Yep.
so there's a distinction. Those who want it have to do more and want to do more. It's not going to be pulling teeth. It's not going to be forcing them. They're going to say, Coach, how do I get better? How many more grams of protein do I need? How can I continue to improve? And I think it's important for parents to make the distinction. Like, I know a young lady who loved basketball until 14, and now she doesn't want to play summer ball. She doesn't want to train. And her parents are like, okay, cool. We're not going to invest anymore. We're not going to force you to do this because she just doesn't see that for her future. And that's okay.
Yep.
So the ones who want it will do more happily. And it is nutrition, it is rest and recovery, it is strength and conditioning, and it's also developing themselves as a person because character actually really does matter.
I 100% agree. And now, fast forward, I have here written head of operations at Speaker Hub. Now, you're head of operations, so there's a mindset component of handling problems and problem solving all the time, right? And then there's the knowledge of how to
Yes.
do that. Then there's dealing with people. And you got to probably, make a case that if you ate well and slept well and still stayed active physically, they all play and they all have an impact on you as the head of operations. Talk about how mentally and physically those skills that you hone as an athlete, how those are then transferable in your current role.
Sure. On the most fundamental level, you have to keep moving your body. Your mind and body are connected. And so I am at my best when I get up and I work out and then I turn on the computer and I hop on the call with my team. Like
Mm,
um, 7 days out of seven, well, 5 out of 5, we don't work weekends, but I am better every single time I do that. So you never stop being an athlete because you always will need to generate energy for your life, whether it's on the court, on the field, or in business or in your family. So that's part of it. In terms of problem solving, they always come, but what you learn as a leader is you don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to, you just need to ask better questions to figure out how do we come up with a solution. And you don't have to solve every problem either, which
sure.
is something that we can translate from sport is that you have people in certain roles for a reason and being able to know their strengths helps them get there. And so I liken Jim and Lucas what we do to kind of running a play. It's like, here's the operations, here's how the business flows. Okay, who are the people in those roles to make it happen? Just like we would draw up a 1-4 low and run someone off, a double down screen or something like that. So yeah, it's all connected.
You're dropping that hoop lingo right there, just like nothing. Like that's what she wakes up thinking that, she's still drawing up plays and they're probably like on the mirror in her bathroom, just written right there, like, oh man, this motion offense, this is gonna be clutch for my niece. I wait till I show her this. Right. Oh man.
Can't
You
help it
know,
once it's in you, you know.
right. I got pushback when I titled the book in my planner Athlete Builder because it's mostly for athletes and it is, right? But I keep telling people also, and I should probably write a second one that's different with a different title, that if you stay an athlete and you stay athletic, you're doing the physical things, which will help you mentally and everything else. Like Lucas is a coach at a school. He doesn't have to lift anymore to do his job. He doesn't do anything, but he competed at the Arnold this year. And he'll tell you that when he's pissed, sometimes he just goes and lifts angry and he's done and he feels better, right? He gets it out, he gets that cortisol taken care of and his stress level comes down. And so if that's just part of you all the time and you grow up in that family that has athletics as a piece and you're always learning, because of her 15 things, half we're learning, if you're athletic and you're a super dork nerd, which I like, you got a shot because you're
Yeah.
smart and you're athletic. So you're probably going to be okay. Don't you think?
Yeah, I agree. I agree because one thing's for sure, life is going to come and knock you off your game.
Mm,
So in the midst of all of this, there are things that are going to happen that you can't anticipate. For example, my dad's 85, my mom's 83, and we're dealing with parents aging. Things aren't going to always go as planned. You know, Germany wasn't part of my plan. My plan and desire was to play in the WNBA. Things happened. I missed an event, a showcase, and ended up going overseas. So you have to be adaptable, but just taking care of yourself and being open to learning gives you a chance to keep going, even when things aren't going the way that you think they should.
I got a few questions here at the end, but I have a couple extras that I didn't put on there. What's your favorite
Okay.
college place that you played at?
First thought, Freedom Hall in Louisville. Freedom Hall's closed now. Freedom Hall was incredible.
Mm,
It was like dark all around the rim. The lights were the brightest. The court was always the best, waxed and clean. Freedom Hall,
mm. I went,
no
so
question.
my son goes to Purdue. I went to Purdue and we took him to a basketball game and it's night and day different from when I was there in the mid 90s. And basketball's still good, but before the game even starts, they put this QR code on the scoreboard. So you download this app on your phone. Now that scoreboard ties to your flashlight on the back. The lights in the entire arena turn off. The music starts playing, and then the entire arena that's all downloaded the QR code and has their flashlight turned on. The lights are synced to the music now, right?
It's so
It
cool.
was wild. I was like, holy cow. Now you are talking about you were this is all in warm-ups and stuff because you can't be turning the lights off when people are playing, right? But there's so much going on now. The fans have all these chants and it's brutal, especially when a kid fouls out. It was like, this is awesome. All right, so overseas, where was the coolest place you played?
I'll say, gosh, I, the arenas were very different in Germany. I don't have a specific arena, but I remember the crowds being much bigger than they were for us here. Women's basketball has shifted though. I mean, it's been a while, so the crowds are definitely bigger now. But no, I don't have a specific
And you always
arena.
played the low post, the five, is that right?
Four or
The
five.
four.
I would face up,
You
every
face up.
now and
Okay.
then, give them
Would you
little
rather
something.
score over someone, or would you rather block them?
Score every day.
Come
Yeah,
on.
all day long. I would score all day long. I was definitely more offensive minded. And
I
I didn't
would,
jump very high, Jim, so blocking
when your thing.
wasn't my thing. Nah, but I put them in a bucket.
Okay. What do you listen to when you train?
These days, because I love salsa music so much, I'm listening to some Mark Anthony. Because I want to dance in between sets because I don't have a coach yelling at me. So I'm
Right?
going to lift and dance at the same time.
My goodness. What's an
I know you
adventure?
love that.
What's an adventure you haven't done yet, but you still want to do?
Hiking at Sequoia National Park. I love national parks, and Sequoia has those massive trees. So
Mm,
Sequoia is on my list for this year.
I was there last spring.
Really? Did you love it?
Loved it. So we went to Yosemite and then Sequoia and then Kings Canyon, and it was spring break, so it's kind of iffy in California during that time of year. So it
Hmm.
was still cold. And in Sequoia, it's at an elevation where usually the snow doesn't close the roads. But at that point, for the last few weeks, is dumped on and dumped on and dumped on, and almost all of it was closed. Almost all of it was closed. And there's one part they opened up, and the snow is still coming. And it was one of the best hikes because now there's this blanket of snow coming down, but we can still be on the path. And it was my wife and Sam and I, and we're just hiking along and just came across this river. And then the next day, it subsided. And then so we went to this other place. And then the day after, since it subsided 2 days in a row, they opened up a second part of the park and we saw these trees. And, so Sam is 6 feet wingspan, 6'1", 6'2", whatever, but he is maybe 1/5 of the bottom of the
Hmm.
tree, so they like six Sam's arms stretched out, and that's the base of the tree. And you see these pictures like, oh, it looks like a big tree. And then you get there and you're like, oh shoot, I'm not, I don't matter. I don't matter at all anymore. So
I know.
yeah, that national park thing, I'm total dork about. Favorite sports movie?
This is gonna throw y'all. Y'all are not gonna expect this. And I'm sure no one else has said this to you. Rebound.
Rebound.
Yes,
I
with
don't know
Martin
that one.
Lawrence.
All right.
It was not popular. It is the dumbest, cutest movie. It's a kid movie. Martin Lawrence he was a college coach that got kicked out because he was obscene. And he goes back and coaches his middle school team. And all the kids are like awkward and gangly. So, and it's a comedy. It's kind of romantic comedy. It's really cute.
No, you
I
got
love
to
it.
go back and watch Fast Break from like the early 80s, maybe late 70s, early
Okay.
80s. So Bernard King was the only real player that was in the movie. Okay. And they got this white Jewish guy coaching this all black team. They're trying to make some money
Okay.
at this university. And this one player just can't, he can't miss. And then you realize it's actually a female that's been taping things down so she looks like a dude.
Oh,
She's
really?
so it's a whole comedy as well. They get pulled over, the coach and the players get pulled over. The cops pull them. They got a pound of weed on them. The coach and the players are actually like trying to eat it, so no one can find. Oh, they're just chewing on it, man. Oh, so it's this ridiculous, funny basketball movie, and that's my first basketball movie I'd ever seen. And so it's Fast Break. It's obscure. It was back when I'm watching on VHS tapes, right? So
Got it.
you know what I'm saying.
It
Is
might
your
be on
fa
Tubi, is what you're saying.
Yes, yes, ma'am. So is your favorite sport basketball to watch, or is there another sport also?
No, it's just
Just best. Favorite athlete then?
my favorite athlete has. I just love Shaniqua Holdsclaw. I thought she was incredible. It's like my formative years. She was the one that really I connected with, and she talked about mental health before a lot of people did. So
Hmm.
she's a really good athlete.
You got a good book you could recommend us?
Yes, there's this really good book I found out about recently called "Still Like an Artist." Still like an artist. Oh, God. Now I need to find the author. But essentially, the book talks about being able to learn from a lot of different people and take um, a lot of different things that inspire you to help create the unique you that you are.
Yes, yes,
Still
I
like an
agree.
artist. It's
Um,
good.
I think I had 150 references in my book because I was like,
Mm,
I went on this journey for like 2 years of just pumping in these books. You see a bunch of them behind me, and
yes.
I'm like, I started outlining them, and I'm like, yeah, this makes sense. I'm applying that. So it was just helpful. You got a favorite
What do you
super?
recommend? I'm sorry, I know you're asking,
Oh,
but now I'm like, what would you recommend?
I recommend my book? No. Let's see.
Right, of course, of course.
What are you looking for? You don't care? So my first one is Atomic Habits. Episode 8 was we broke down every chapter of that book and how we apply it to athletes. The Way of the Seal by Mark Divine. You want to learn how to talk to people, go with never split the difference. When you talk about if you got a problem, you label it immediately, and it's very disarming. Never Split the Difference is a FBI hostage negotiator that worked internationally and is at the highest level. For leadership, anything that Jocko puts out, anything that Green puts out on the 48 Laws of Power, the laws of human nature, you learn about how people actually are and how they think. When you said about steal from artists, they talk about like Da Vinci. Yeah, he was a great painter, but he was great at biology first, understand how bodies look, and then he was great at
Mm.
oils and how these combine, so you can create this look on someone's skin that when they're inflamed in their neck, it would show this. So you take two different things and you added that
Yeah.
intelligence together, then now he's this legit, once in a lifetime artist. So if you want something just funny, but still kind of intense, if you know who David Goggins is, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So read Living with Seal. It doesn't say that
Okay.
David Goggins is the guy in the book, but he is, right? And Jesse Itzler, I think he's part owner of the Atlanta Hawks, and his wife, geez, OP, talk about having money. She created Spanx for females.
Oh,
She's the
yeah.
creator of Spanx, right? And he owns the Hawks. Anyways, he has David Goggins live with him for 30 days. And oh my, I'm reading, I'm laughing out loud funny. It's laughing out loud
I
funny.
can't imagine what he has
So
him doing.
it's awesome. It's awesome. You got a favorite superhero or villain?
I saw these. I'm not really into superheroes, but Black Panther was cool. I mean,
Yeah,
Wakanda forever,
right.
that was
Yeah,
cool.
I
And
shall always
Killmonger,
I would say
was,
this, it could be a real person that's been a hero of yours.
oh, that's different. Okay. Oh, then my mom. I mean, my
Psh,
mom, without, that was easy.
right? What's your favorite
Yeah.
lift in the gym?
I I love um lunges. I know technically it's not a lift, but I
That's right.
think balance, well, with weights, I guess you lift with lunges with weights. But I think especially as I get older, just being able to be balanced on one leg and strong and being able to push up is really important.
Single leg work is huge for athletes. It absolutely is.
Hmm.
And nothing makes me more challenged to walk up the stairs than lunges.
Yeah, not a fan of lunges.
Exactly.
Yep, they're hard. We did a challenge at my gym one month, and we did for a year. We did a challenge every month for 12 months in a row. And one month it was lunge 1 mile.
I did that one.
It was god
Wow.
awful. It was one of the three times I thought, you know what, I might quit. I might
It
quit.
was lunge with weight though.
No. The one with weight was a farmer's carry for a mile.
And you had to squat when you
Yeah,
put it
yeah.
down. I
So
remember
every
that
time
one.
you rested and put the weights down before you could go again, you had to squat 10 times with one of the bells you were carrying. And that one actually made my wife cry.
Yeah.
She was almost at the end, and she was at the end, and she still had to do another set, and she started to cry up a little. I'm like, she's so mad, she's so upset because it was hundreds, like 400 reps of the resting squats before she finished. And those are two of the challenges that we did that were just nothing but pain. Mm,
Done both of those.
yeah,
The farmer carries one was
horrible.
very bad.
It was 70 pounds in each hand for guys and 44s for girls for a mile. Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Now, my wife's daughter, Kate, if you look at her, she's real strong lower body. She did that mile lunge in that month 3 times. Insane.
Oh,
Just going.
that's
She would just
impressive.
she would just go. She would just go. Uh, Angela, you got a quote for us?
People will forget what you said. They'll forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. Maya Angelou. Love that
Hmm.
one.
Well, I'd say you
Love
made
that
me
one.
feel great today because I learned more and I had a fun time doing it.
Oh, wonderful. This has been so much fun. I've really enjoyed talking to
Awesome.
y'all.
Angela, where can people find you? I know you're out of Dallas and you're in St. Louis right now, but where can people find you online, or if they want to get a hold of you and send you that DM so they can go to that community college for free? How are people
Right.
getting a hold of you?
On LinkedIn, Angela R. Lewis. The R is important. There are a lot of us. So Angela R. Lewis.
Yep.
My website is angelarlewis.com. And then Instagram, the Angela R. Lewis.
Perfect.
So
Even the
you can
same
find
thing
me
on
there.
YouTube too, I think. Yeah, for sure.
Yes, the Angela Arliss. Yeah.
For those that want to get a hold of us, very similar, athlete-builder.com. And if you want to email us, info@athlete-builder.com. This year's summit, June 7th. I was just talking to Jeremy Hartman last week, the guy that's coming to talk about strength. He's bringing two more coaches on his own dime. He's just bringing two more coaches to help out at the summit, especially during the lifting session. One of the guys is a 1,000-pound squatter and a drug tested meet. So come check out the this year's summit's June 7th. Same on the website, athlete-builder.com. And man, Angela, great time today. Loved our time together. Really, thank you so much for the gift.
You're welcome, and thank you as well.
All right, we'll see you.
Thank you.